They thought it was just another piece of cosmic debris, a frozen wanderer drifting through the dark. Cold, silent, forgettable. The catalog of space is filled with such remnants. Dust, ice, the scattered leftovers of creation. Yet, when astronomers labeled it 3I/Atlas, they had no idea this one would defy everything we understand about reality. At first glance, it looked ordinary. A faint glint in the black, tumbling in from the edge of interstellar space. But almost immediately, its movement betrayed it. Its trajectory twisted in ways gravity shouldn't allow. Its energy output pulsed like a heartbeat. Rhythmic, deliberate, unnatural. And when the James Webb Space Telescope turned its precision instruments toward it, the results shattered scientific expectation. Beneath layers of rock and ice, Webb's infrared scans revealed something impossible. A repeating geometric pattern, structured, uniform, and mathematically precise. Not random fissures, not geological formations, but design, hidden grids, angled walls, corridors perfectly spaced in multiples of 3. A geometry too deliberate to be nature's accident. And deep inside that cold, rotating body lay a shape that mirrored the layout of a city. A city carved into stone and ice, drifting between stars. So the question changed. It was no longer, what is it? It became, who built it? And perhaps even more haunting, why is it coming here? Because 3I/Atlas isn't just passing through. This path leads straight through the heart of our solar system. And whatever it carries inside, whatever intelligence designed it, is about to enter our skies. This is where the mystery begins. At first, scientists logged 3I/Atlas as a curiosity, another interstellar traveler, no different from Oumuamua or Borisov before it. But curiosity turned to unease when the James Webb Space Telescope began studying its surface in infrared. What the data showed was not noise, not random thermal scattering, but order. Hidden beneath the dust and carbon ice, Webb detected symmetrical patterns, heat signatures that aligned in straight lines, forming corridors, intersections, and hollow chambers arranged with mechanical precision. At first, it was dismissed as a data artifact, a glitch caused by reflective interference or sensor bloom. But repetition kills coincidence. The patterns repeated. Every scan, every layer, every adjustment revealed the same truth. The internal formations of 3I/Atlas obeyed rules of architecture, not chaos. Long, narrow tunnels, enclosed cavities, right angles that nature simply doesn't favor. On Earth, the only things shaped like this are built. When researchers overlaid the data into a 3D thermal reconstruction, the outline resembled a city grid. Not once, but over and over, modular, consistent, almost as if it had been designed by an engineer rather than forged by time. That's when the silence in the control room began to shift from confusion to disbelief. Because in all the cosmos, nothing in nature forms perfect right angles. Only intelligence does. If the readings were correct, then 3I/Atlas wasn't a rock, it was a relic. A monument of construction. Something that had once served a purpose. And somewhere in that ancient geometry, the first hints of that purpose were beginning to reveal themselves. If the geometry inside 3I/Atlas startled the scientific world, what came next disturbed it. The object's heat, its quiet, persistent warmth, shouldn't exist at all. Comets, after all, are cold. Frozen relics of the early universe. They drift in silence, radiating almost nothing. Yet 3I/Atlas defied that rule. The James Webb Space Telescope's instruments began detecting infrared pulses, bursts of heat that came not from its surface, but from deep within. And they weren't random. The pulses appeared in sequence, synchronized across specific internal regions that aligned precisely with the structural grid previously identified. This wasn't natural convection. It was coordination. Every burst of heat came from confined zones, like rooms that flickered to life for a moment, then went dark again. Scientists compared the readings to controlled temperature regulation, what you'd expect from a machine maintaining internal stability. The patterns suggested a system, a design, purpose. Even stranger, when Webb directed electromagnetic scans at the same coordinates, certain frequencies bounced away entirely, as though hitting a reflective shield. Others vanished altogether, absorbed by something within, never returning. That was the moment the language of the data changed. The words anomaly and artifact gave way to something bolder: containment, shielding, energy behavior. 3I Atlas was no longer a mystery of geology. It was behaving like technology, a structure with active temperature zones, radiation shielding, and controlled energy emission can only mean one thing: function. And if something functions, it was meant to. Suddenly, the unthinkable felt closer to the truth. Maybe this wasn't an object at all. Maybe it was a vessel, and something inside it had once been alive. To understand what they were seeing, researchers began comparing 3I Atlas to what humanity had built for itself. Not to prove its origins, but to find anything remotely similar. They studied underground cities, nuclear bunkers, and spacecraft interiors, structures created to protect life against radiation, vacuum, or time itself. And the comparisons were chilling. The internal geometry of 3I Atlas mirrored our own most advanced designs for survival. Hexagonal chambers, used on Earth to maximize strength and minimize material strain. Corridors arranged in Fibonacci ratios, mathematical sequences that balance harmony and efficiency. Even the distribution of space seemed optimized, as if to conserve atmosphere, energy, or heat. One physicist from the European Space Agency called it environmental compartmentalization, a term used to describe engineered systems meant to preserve something biological, technological, or both against the void. It forced a new interpretation. Maybe this wasn't a ruin of a civilization. Maybe it was a lifeboat, a fragment of something greater. Perhaps it broke away from a parent vessel. Perhaps it was sent deliberately, carrying its contents, its memory, its message, across an ocean of stars. But one question cut deeper than the rest. Why now? Why had it crossed the silent dark only to arrive at this moment? Our moment, in our solar system. Was this a chance? A trajectory written in physics? Or was there something deliberate in its approach? Something aware? Because if the 3I Atlas was built to carry, protect, or preserve, then its destination might not have been random. And if that's true, its arrival is not a coincidence. It's timing. As the evidence mounted, the world's most powerful institutions found themselves standing before an unspoken truth, one too large, too dangerous to say aloud. Officially, they called it a thermal anomaly. Others labeled it non-natural geometry. But beneath the academic restraint, everyone knew what those words meant. Artificial origin. The implication rippled through the scientific community like a silent earthquake. Because if the 3I Atlas was not born of nature, then it was built by someone, somewhere, sometime long before human civilization began to crawl across its own planet. Still, the establishment resisted the word extraterrestrial. Not out of disbelief, but fear. Fear of what it would mean for science, for faith, for control. Because to admit that something intelligent built this would be to dismantle centuries of understanding in a single moment. Behind closed doors, however, the tone changed. Government satellites shifted position. Deep space antennas recalibrated their frequencies. Military communication arrays, normally fixed on Earth's orbit, turned outward. Something had changed in the way leaders spoke, the way agencies moved. The conversations grew quieter. The eyes watching the object grew sharper. Because every new scan, every layer of data reinforced the same undeniable pattern. Precision, design, intention. 3I Atlas was not drifting aimlessly through space. It was revealing itself, bit by bit, as if waiting to be seen. And as it passed deeper into our system, something else began to spread across command centers and research labs alike. Not panic, not hysteria, but an ancient, quiet realization. If this was a structure, then it wasn't just a discovery. It was an encounter. When the first images of 3I Atlas circulated through international observatories, the reaction was not excitement, it was silence. Some of the most respected astrophysicists in the world, the same voices who usually debate theories in public forums, refused to comment. Their statements, when given, were careful, rehearsed almost to the word, unexpected, statistically improbable, beyond current models. But behind those phrases was something far more human: fear. Not of the object itself, but of what accepting its reality would demand. To admit that a structure existed inside an interstellar body was to unwrite centuries of science. To acknowledge design beyond Earth was to admit that we are not the first, nor the only, nor perhaps even the most advanced. It would mean that everything humanity has ever assumed about isolation in the universe, the comfort of being alone, was wrong. So the scientific world hesitated. And in that hesitation, the truth began to fade into shadows. Because the moment the unknown threatens the order of knowledge, silence becomes safer than revelation. Yet, even as the public statements grew vague, something else was happening behind the scenes. Military satellites were retasked. Deep space arrays quietly recalibrated. Secure lines opened between agencies that rarely spoke. The hesitation was never disbelief, it was strategy. The kind of pause that comes when you realize the question isn't, "What have we found?" It's, "What does it mean?" And for the first time in living memory, humanity's brightest minds stood not at the edge of understanding, but at the threshold of something older, vaster, and far more intelligent than themselves. When the scientific world hesitated, the military did not. Within days, a quiet but coordinated surveillance operation unfolded across 3 continents. The United States, Europe, and China all redirected high-orbit instruments, satellites designed for missile tracking and deep space reconnaissance, toward a single object, 3I Atlas. These were not public telescopes. They were machines of precision and secrecy, built to detect movement invisible to the human eye. And what they saw changed everything. The object wasn't spinning freely like a rock. It was rotating with rhythm. Its thermal zones blinked in perfect intervals. Its gravitational field shifted subtly, almost as though mass was rearranging inside its core. Something inside was moving. Whispers leaked from classified briefings. Engineers spoke of mechanical realignment. Intelligence analysts described internal redistribution. The language was technical, but the meaning was simple: it wasn't dead. Even more chilling was what came next. A faint, rhythmic pulse. Not radio, not heat. Something deeper, gravitational. It was as if the object was using gravity itself to communicate. No one could explain it. Not the physicists, not the mathematicians, not even the agencies tasked with monitoring existential threats. The signal wasn't directed, but it was deliberate, repeating with the precision of a coded transmission. And in that moment, 3I Atlas was no longer a comet, or an artifact, or even a mystery. It was a device. A machine older than our species, now humming quietly through our solar system, as if waiting for someone to notice that it had begun to speak. In a sealed conference room buried deep beneath the European Space Operations Center, a select team of scientists, data engineers, and AI specialists gathered to process Webb's encrypted transmissions. What they were about to witness would erase the boundary between science and myth. The telescope's readings were fed into a high-resolution spatial reconstruction model, a neural system capable of mapping 3-dimensional structures from multispectral data. It was designed for asteroid mining and planetary geology. It was never meant for this. As the data compiled, what emerged on screen wasn't chaos, it was architecture. Multiple levels, intersecting corridors, heat exchange channels. Energy nodes are aligned like power relays. Compartments, some vast, others narrow, arranged with the logic of habitation. And then the silence in the room deepened. Because one thing became unmistakable. This wasn't an empty shell. It was a blueprint, a functioning layout,